Halo Pak Abdul Rahman,
Halo,
Assalamualaikum. Ya,
Waalaikumsalam. Dengar suara
ya,
saya, Mas?
dengar. Ini Bapak lagi share screen ini, Pak.
Ya, saya share screen. Saya stop ya.
Oh iya, iya, iya. Oke. Nanti filenya Pak Abdul Rahman buka aja. Jadi ini tampilannya memang beda dengan Zoom. Nanti
Mm-mm.
kalau kelihatan saya kasih tahu nanti sudah kelihatan gitu.
Oke, oke. Mm,
PowerPoint.
oke.
Oke. Oke, welcome to our class, Dr. Abdul Rahman. Today is the last day, so we will learn about halal laboratory testing standards with Professor Abdul Rahman. Professor Abdul Rahman is lecturer at Gajah Mada University of Yogyakarta in Indonesia. Okay, Prof. Abdul Rahman.
Ya,
So time is yours,
oke.
please.
Thank Dr. Sabilur Rosyad. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Do you hear me?
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, clear,
Okay, okay.
very clear.
I will share my presentation. So I use Canva. Uh, can you see my slide presentation?
Yes, very clear,
Okay, thank.
perfect.
Okay. Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank to Halal Institute for inviting me to share about the standard laboratory testing for non-halal component. Currently, I am a lecturer, professor in Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry, Faculty of Pharmacy, Universitas Gadjah Mada. You know that Universitas Gadjah Mada is one of the leading university in Indonesia. Okay, let me introduce myself first. So currently I am head of the halal inspection body, Universitas Gadjah Mada. As you know that according to Indonesian regulation that the auditing process is taken by halal inspection body, or in Indonesia is known as Lembaga Pemeriksa Halal. And currently I am head of the Halal Inspection Body, and also I am also the head of the Center of Excellence Institute for Halal Industry and System in Gadjah Mada. I obtained my PhD degree from Halal Product Research Institute in University Putra Malaysia in the field of halal food analysis. So this is my degree certificate, and this is my certificate related to my position as one of halal auditors. So in Indonesia, if you are an auditor, so you must have the certificate, minimum training certificate on the halal products. Okay, some competence I want to explain why the laboratory testing is very important for us, because if you see in Indonesia for halal certification, we call it council or Republik Indonesia. And ulama or Indonesian Ulama Council has set up some of the competence to be had to be inherent in for the halal auditor. The first one is the auditor must have competence to set up the inspection of material and process of halal products. And then a halal auditor should perform the pre-inspection of material and process of halal products, and then performing inspection of material and process of halal product. So this is on-site auditing. And finally, the halal auditor must report the inspection result of material and process of halal product. This report prepared by halal auditors in Indonesia, the regulation in Indonesia, once halal inspection body perform the auditing, and then halal audit prepare the audit report, and then this audit report will be used by Fatwa Committee of Indonesian Ulama Council to decide whether the product submit to halal certificate can be given by halal certificate or not. So the issue of halal certificate by Indonesian Ulama Council is actually based on report prepared by halal auditor. So from here we know that one of important thing is we as an auditor must be familiar how to make the report during our auditing. Okay, when we audit in Indonesia, so we must look into detail about what we call as halal product assurance systems. So the 5 components of halal product assurance system, the first one is commitment and responsibility. So the business owner must prepare the commitment to provide the halal product. The business owner must have the responsibility about the halal policy, halal management team, and also training on the halal related issues to all of the business members. This is the first component in halal product assurance system. The second one is material. So this is relevant about our topic because the material used in the product can be either halal or non-halal. So if we suppose that the material used contain non-halal components, so we must check in the laboratories, because so the testing in the laboratory actually is related to material use, and then the process of halal products. So we must look into detail also about the process used during the production of the halal products, and also the final product we must check, and finally we as an auditor must check about the monitoring and evaluation. How about the internal audit? How about the management review? Who attend the audit? Who attend management review? What is the planning for the next year, for example? So we must check the monitoring and evaluation in the business owners. So as you know that the halal certification in Indonesia country is obligation. So Indonesia has Indonesian Act number 33 2014, number 33 2014. This is Indonesian Act, the law of the Republic of Indonesia, number 33 year 2014 on halal product assurance. In the 4th articles in this law state that product that enter, circulate, and traded in the territory of Republic Indonesia must be halal certified. So this is the basic for the obligation of halal certification. Before this law, Indonesia, the halal certification of product is voluntary. But since the implementation of this law, so the halal certificate of the products is must, it's obligation. So what is the product here? In the explanation of this law, the product here mean that food, beverage, chemicals, personal care, cosmetic, pharmaceutical, and so on and so on. So all the products, our glue, yeah, so must be halal. Why? Because we have implemented this Indonesian law number 33 and 2014. in the fourth article. So this is the basis for the obligation of halal certification. And then the organization responsible for the halal certification in Indonesia is the single organization responsible for halal certification is in Indonesia is Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee. So the only one organization responsible for the certification of halal product is Halal Product Assurance Organizing body, or we call as Badan Penyelenggara Jaminan Produk Halal. Badan Penyelenggara Jaminan Produk Halal. Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee, organizing agency. So BPJPH. So BPJPH is the only one organization in Indonesia responsible for the halal certification. For the auditing, the organization responsible is what we call as halal inspection body or halal inspection agency or lembaga pemeriksa halal. For decision halal or not, this responsibility is taken by Fatwa Committee of Indonesian Ulama Council. So the certificate is issued by BPJPH. So this is the procedure for halal certification in Indonesia. So what is the role of the laboratory testing? So when business owner want to submit the product to be halal certified, and then the business owner must declare about the composition, about the ingredient used in their products, all of the material. So if one or two material is not combined with halal certificate, for example, and we suppose that the material is coming from non-halal component, for example, like that, maybe the business owners want to certify the products containing meat, for example, sausage, meatball, hamburger, and so on. And then there is no information about the types of meat, or maybe the business owner said that the meat used is beef, for example, but we have a doubtful about the types of meat, so we must check about the authenticity of the meat used in the meatball product. So this is the role of the laboratory testing. So if we suppose that the one or more component used in the product to be certified halal, we suppose that there is non-halal component, for example, pig derivatives, for example, lard, pork, and also porcine gelatin, then we must subject this product into laboratory testing. So our knowledge and the availability of the standard method for this is very important. This is the duty of the halal auditor. So our colleague from Lithuania must be familiar about the duty of halal auditor according to Indonesian law. So the duty of halal auditors in Indonesian law is stated in the 15th article of Indonesian law number 33 2014. So the halal auditor has the duty to examine and assess the material used, and then examine and assessing the product manufacturing process. So if you look into detail, actually these duties are related to halal product assurance system. Yeah. So these duties, this is actually is similar to what we call as halal product assurance system. Commitment and responsibility, material use, process of halal product, and the final product, and also the monitoring and evaluation. So The duty of the halal auditor is examine and assessing the slaughtering system. This is related to material use. And then inspecting the equipment, production room, and storage. This is related to the process, the production process. Examining the product distribution and presentation, examining the halal assurance system of business operator, and finally, this is the most relevant about our topic this afternoon or this morning in Lithuania, is reporting the examination or testing result to halal inspection body. So we as halal auditors must report the examination or testing result or laboratory testing result to halal inspection body. As you know that halal auditors is person under halal inspection body. In Indonesia, halal auditor is under halal inspection body or LPH, Lembaga Pemeriksa Halal in Indonesia. So we as an auditors, a halal auditor must be familiar about the method or about the testing used to confirm that the material is halal or the material is free from non-halal component. So this issues on halal products. When I take the PhD program in Halal Product Research Institute, my Professor Jacob, said to me that there are three issues in halal products. The first one is material. As you know, maybe some materials are coming from non-halal component, especially meat, for example, oil or gelatin, because maybe if the product contain meat, so we must have a double about maybe pork used in this product. Or if the product contain fat and oil, maybe the oil come from lard or pork fat. Or if the product, the main component used in the product is gelatin, for example, candies and marshmallow, maybe capsule cells, in which the main component is gelatin. So we must have a doubtful that maybe the gelatin used is coming from porcine. So the availability, analytical method, or our understanding about the method should be used to test the non-halal component is very helpful. Okay, I think the first issue is related to the materials, and then the second issue is related to process of halal product. As you know that the material process is one of the component in halal product assurance system. And finally, halal product authentication. Halal product authentication, it means that the product is authentic. It means that the product is free from non-halal component. And then to confirm that the product are authentic, to confirm that the product are halal, so we must support with the laboratory instrument to confirm that the product to be certified are free from non-halal component. As I mentioned before, that the main components may be present in our product, food, cosmetic, or pharmaceutical, maybe come from a pig, because as you know that there are 40 products derived from the pig. Yeah, I will show later. So this is the case in Indonesia. So this is also support the necessary to use the analytical method to check whether the product are free from non-halal component or not. Okay, this is the head of Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee or BPJPA. This is BPJPA, Badan Penyelenggara Jaminan Produk Halal, or Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee. As I mentioned that in Indonesia, the only one organization responsible for halal certification is BPJPH or Badan Penyelenggara Jaminan Produk Halal. This is Badan Penyelenggara Jaminan Produk Halal or Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee. The head of BPJPH has announced in April 2025. This is 21 April 2025. I think 9 months ago. Yeah. So some products receiving the halal certificate from BPJPH after laboratory testing, this product are positive to contain porcine gelatin. So why it happens? Because maybe the auditor didn't check in the laboratory. So this is product. For example, this is Cornique products, yeah, from Philippines actually, and then imported by one of the factory from Indonesia, and this product has received the halal certificate from BPJPH with the number ID 004 and so on. So this product actually has received the halal certificate from BPJPH. But after BPJPH performed the laboratory testing to this product, and then in this product it found non-halal component. In this case, is porcine gelatin. Why? Maybe the producer just label that the product is halal, and then maybe the producer also has the halal certificate, but maybe the gelatin used is coming from porcine. Not on this product, there's 9 products. This is the first one, and then marshmallow also from Philippines, and this is from China, and then China, mostly from China and Philippines. So some products receiving halal certificate from BPJPH are positively to contain porcine gelatin. So according to Indonesian Ulama Council, according to Fatwa Committee of Indonesian Ulama Councils, that the porcine gelatin are non-halal according to MUS Fatwa. So this is very, very dangerous because the product have received the halal certificate, and then after BPJPH checked through the laboratory testing, and then this product are positive to contain a porcine gelatin. The method used by BPJPH to check whether the product are positive or negative to contain porcine gelatin is real-time PCR or PCR. PCR is polymerase chain reaction, which is the method based on the DNA. So as I mentioned that we must be careful because from this porcine from this pig, so there are 40 products derived from the pig. So we must be careful. Maybe our face mask and our lipstick, for example, our bakery product maybe contain lard. This is pork fat or pork meat, pork, and also maybe the porcine gelatin. So analytical method typically, so the analytical method is commonly dedicated to analyze these 3 components for analysis of pork, and then lard, and also porcine gelatin, because these 3 components are common to meet in our daily products. For example, in the pharmaceutical, in capsule cells, for example, in our food, in candy, marshmallow, and also maybe in cosmetic. We have some papers about some of the analytical method used to detect and to analyze the presence of a non-halal component, especially pig derivatives in the particular products. So what is the halal products? So we must know in a definition about the halal products. Malaysia has some standard on halal. Malaysia has halal standard on halal pharmaceutical, halal food, and also halal cosmetic. So from here, we can learn about the definition of the halal pharmaceutical, halal food, or halal cosmetic. Yeah. So the halal pharmaceutical or halal food, halal cosmetic actually is product, in this case, pharmaceutical product, food product, or cosmetic product that contain ingredient permitted under the Sharia law and fatwa. Why fatwa? Because the fatwa is the single law related to the halal product. So in the product, according to fatwa, is not allowed or halal, this is haram. So in this definition, the Malaysian standard use the term of fatwa. So halal pharmaceutical are pharmaceutical product that contain ingredient permitted under the Sharia law and fatwa and fulfill the following condition. The first one is do not contain any part or product of animals that are non-halal by Sharia law, or didn't contain any part or product of animals which are not slaughtered according to Sharia law. So the product must be free from pig derivatives, because pig or porcine is non-halal animals. Or the product must be free from halal animals like beef, chicken, for example, but beef and chicken is not or aren't slaughtered according to the Islamic principle. So this is also taken into account as non-halal component. And also the definition of a halal product is the halal product do not contain najis according to Sharia law. As we know that there are three types of najis mukhafafah, mutawassithah, and also mughaladhah. And then the halal products must be safe for consumption, non-poisonous, non-intoxicating, or non-hazardous to health according to prescribed doses. This is for pharmaceutical. Yeah, we should know that drugs is restricted by a dose. So provided that at the prescribed dose, the pharmaceutical or the drug is not dangerous, so it is allowed. So it is halal. But if the drugs using the suitable dose and then this is dangerous to human health, so this product is non-halal. And then the halal product is not prepared, processed, or manufactured using equipment contaminated with najis according to Sharia law. And then do not contain any human part or its derivative that are not according to Sharia law. And during its preparation, processing, handling, packaging, distribution, the halal pharmaceutical product must didn't contact with the product with the ingredients that in the A, B, C, D, or E. So this is the definition of the halal pharmaceutical, and this is the division about the halal cosmetic. So actually this is the same, yeah. This is halal cosmetics, yeah. So if you look into detail, that the definition, the term is actually same. That the pharmaceutical product is replaced by the cosmetic product. So this is the important for halal authentication analysis. So in some products or material without any halal certificate may be subject to laboratory testing. For example, like that. If business owner, for example, want to certify the products, for example, meatballs, and then all of the component in this meatball are commented with a halal certificate. But for the meat, there is no halal certificate. And then we must check into the laboratory. So it is recommended that the laboratory used should be accredited according to ISO 17025-2017. This is ISO 17025 is international standard for laboratory testing and laboratory calibration. So the international standard for laboratory testing or calibration is ISO 17025-2017. So the common component present in the food and others are pork fat or lard. For example, pork fat or lard can be found in cosmetic, maybe in lotion, cream, lipstick, and then pork in meatball, yeah, and maybe porcine gelatin in food and pharmaceutical product. As I mentioned before, that porcine gelatin may be found in the food, in candy, for example, and also porcine gelatin can be found in the pharmaceutical in capsule cell. So our laboratory in Gajah Mada University, Gajah Mada University is the second, I think the second rank in Indonesia after University of Indonesia, according to QS ranking. So our laboratory has been accredited according to ISO 17025, and we have a scope, two scopes related to halal. This is we have the accredited method according to ISO 17025 to analyze pork in meatball and nugget, and also we also have the standardized method. We have accredited method on how to detect the porcine gelatin in the capsule cell. So this is two methods have been accredited by ISO 17025. So we move to the halal inspection body. So I will explain again about the procedure of halal certification in Indonesia. So again, that the organization responsible for halal certification in Indonesia is Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee, or BPGPS. Okay, and then the organization or the agency perform the auditing process is LPH, or Halal Inspection Body. So one of the LPH in our university also has LPH. We call as LPH, or Halal Inspection Body, Universitas Gadjah Mada. So halal auditing is performed by Halal Inspection Body or lembaga pemeriksa halal. As I mentioned, that halal auditors is under Halal Inspection Body. So therefore, the requirement to set up the halal inspection body, the first is have its own office and equipment. So in Indonesia, if we want to if we want to make the halal inspection body or halal or lembaga pemeriksa halal, so there are some requirements. The first requirement is the candidate must have its own office and equipment. And the second is must have halal auditors, minimum 3 people. And then have a laboratory. So in Indonesia law, to become the halal inspection body, so the candidate must have a laboratory, or as you know that making laboratory is very costly. So the candidate of halal inspection body is allowed to cooperate with the existing laboratory. So our university, our laboratory in our university also cooperate with some of halal inspection bodies. So some halal inspection body have no laboratory can cooperate with halal inspection body equipped with can cooperate with halal inspection body having the laboratory. And finally, the halal inspection body must have accreditation certificate from BPGPA. So we must prepare some document when we apply to become a halal inspection body. We must submit some documents needed to accreditation. Because as you know that in Indonesia there are numerous there are some halal inspection body. So all halal inspection bodies in Indonesia are standardized through the accreditation by Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee. So all halal inspection bodies are similar, are comparable because all halal inspection bodies are standardized by Halal Product Assurance Organizing Committee or BPGPH. And then we move to the core of our presentation is related to analytical method for analysis of peak derivative, or maybe we also extend to analytical method for analysis of non-halal components. So actually, the method is simple. So if you have method can be used for analysis of meat in general, if you have the method which can be used for identification or for analysis of meat in general. So this method is also applicable for analysis of pork. Inversely, if you have the method is capable of identifying lard, so this method is also applicable for analysis of fat and oil. So there are some methods for analysis, as I mentioned before, that this component, lard, porcine gelatin, and also pork, is three components normally or typically found in our product. So for lard, for analysis of lard, we can use lipid-based methods such as gas chromatography and IR spectroscopy. And then for pork, we can use DNA-based method such as polymerase chain reaction, and also for porcine gelatin, the method of choice is based on the polymerase chain reaction or through identification of peptide markers using LC-HRMS. Okay. Okay, this is our papers explaining about how to detect peak derivatives. So we have some publication related to these issues. For example, this Food Review International, we report some analytical methods for detecting peak derivative. So peak derivative, it means that peak derivatives are all components derived from the peak. All components derived from peaks. Okay. So for analysis of lard, for example, we can use IR spectroscopy, and then we also can use a GCMS, differential scanning calorimetry, and also we can use electronic nose or fast gas chromatography. We will discuss more detail about these analytical techniques. So and also for gelatin analysis, for example, we can use method based on protein base, DNA base, and also other methods. Yeah. So we can, for analysis of porcine, halal, and kosher gelatin, we can use protein base such as ELISA, and then for DNA base, we can use PCR and also its development. And the other method, especially lipid base, or protein based, we can use chromatography, spectroscopy, and also sodium dodeoxysulfate, polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. Yeah, so this is some method we will explore later. So we move to analysis of non-halal product using FTIR spectroscopy and chemometry. So in general, we classify method into two categories. The first one is for screening, and the second one is confirmation. So for screening method, we can use one of the method used is IR spectroscopy. This is for screening method, and we use IR spectroscopy for analysis of non-halal meat such as pork, dog meat, red meat in meatball and sausage. And also this method, IR spectroscopy, is also reported to detect halal and non-halal gelatins, bovine, fish, and also porcine gelatins in candies and capsule cells. And also IR spectroscopy is used to detect pork fat or lard in food and cosmetic product. So IR spectroscopy, one of the characteristic for IR spectroscopy is fingerprinting technique. So IR spectroscopy is fingerprinting technique. It means that there is no two object, there is no two samples having the same IR spectra. Therefore, IR spectra is called as fingerprinting technique. Why? Because there are no two objects have the same IR spectra. So we can differentiate between halal meat, for example, pork, for example, beef, from non-halal meat, maybe red meat, pork, canine meat, by identifying the IR spectra. So this is basically IR spectra is like that. So we can differentiate halal and non-halal component. So this is some of our publications, of our papers. So analysis of fat in meatball broth using IR spectroscopy and chemometry. So if you see meatball, for examples, and then we can analyze the type of meat used in this meatball through analysis of broth. And then we take the broth and then we extract using a non-polar solvent. And then from non-polar solvent, the lipid, all of the lipid will be extracted. And then we removing the solvent, and then the lipid fraction is subject to FTIR spectrophotometer. So this is the procedure for analysis of fat through analysis of broth. And also we have a paper about how to analyze pork in beef meatball. And also we have a paper about analysis red meat in meatball formulation and also dog meat. So again, that IR spectroscopy is screening method. So if we deduce that the product contain non-halal meat, for example, and then we continue to confirmation method, mainly using DNA-based method. In this case, we can use polymerase chain reaction. So this is the general procedure to analyze, for example, to analyze the types of meat in the meatball products. Yeah, so meatball product and also meat are subject to lipid extraction using non-polar solvent, and then lipid and then the analysis, chemometric modeling, and then we can develop the chemometric model either for classification or for quantification. Okay, IR spectroscopy. This is related to our article about analysis of POC in people, but the principle is the same. Yeah. So IR spectroscopy is also used for analysis of gelatin, porcelain gelatin. This is our colleague from Turkey, Professor Sebi, has developed IR spectroscopy for analysis of gelatin, candies, and also IR spectroscopy is used for the classification and discrimination of bovine, porcine, and also fish gelatins. So this is this IR spectra. Yeah, as I mentioned before, that IR spectra is a fingerprinting tool. Yeah, and then from here we can develop a statistical model using chemometric. From here we can get this model. So this is bovine gelatin, porcine gelatin, also fish gelatin. So if we have unknown sample, for examples, unknown gelatin sample, and then we run using IR spectrophotometer, and then we can get the IR spectra, and then IR spectra is subject to chemometric modeling, and then if this object, this unknown sample fall in here, we can deduce, we can propose that unknown sample is bovine gelatin. If here we can state that the unknown sample is a porcine gelatin, and so on and so on. So this is the use of IR spectroscopy. Again, that IR spectroscopy is for screening, yeah, for screening. So the advantage of IR spectroscopy is simple and some cases without any sample preparation. So maybe if you have the cosmetic product, lotion or cream, so theoretically, this cream, this lotion can be directly analyzed in our FTIR spectrophotometer without sample preparation. Yeah. So IR spectra are specific. Why? Because FTIR spectra are fingerprinting in nature. Yeah, it means that there are no two objects having the same IR spectra. But the main disadvantage is that the developed method can only be used for formulation of sample consistent with those tested. So if we want to use IR spectroscopy, so we must prepare the samples having the identical composition with the product to be analyzed. If the composition of the sample to be analyzed is different, so IR spectra of the analyte in the mixture will also be different. So the presence of non-halal component in the different food sample or in different pharmaceutical samples is quantified using the different spectral regions. So this is the main disadvantage. And then the second method, if IR spectroscopy is screening method, chromatography can be used as the confirmation method. Why? Because using chromatography, we can identify the markers. Marker is specific components only present in the non-halal component. For example, like that. You must search, you must perform, you must try to find the marker folate, for example. And the marker folate can be obtained through the specific fatty acid. For example, the fatty acid marker for lard is X fatty acid. For example, X fatty acid. So if you have any types of samples, can be food, pharmaceutical, or cosmetic. You have these samples, can be food, pharmaceutical, or cosmetic. And you want to analyze and you want to detect whether lard present in these samples. So you can search this fatty acid marker So if you find this specific fatty acid marker in your sample, so you can conclude that the sample are positively to contain non-halal component, in this case, for example, lard. So using chromatography, we can analyze non-halal components through three approaches. The first one is single component analysis. So as I mentioned that single component analysis, it means that we search the specific marker. And then we can use the approach of fingerprinting profiling. And finally, we can use the metabolomic approach. So chromatography, either gas or liquid chromatography, especially if combined with mass spectrometer, could be used for detection of non-halal component based on this approach. I mean, based on the single component analysis approach, based on fingerprinting approach, and also based on the metabolomic approach. In liquid chromatography and gas chromatography, non-halal components are separated into each component through interaction between a liquid or gas mobile phase. So this methodology, this chromatography focus on searching the specific marker present in the porcine. Maybe if we want to analyze lard, so we can search the specific fatty acid as marker, or triglyceride, or if our sample is gelatin, for example, we can search the peptide marker. So GCMS, gas chromatography mass spectrometry, in my opinion, as analytical chemist, GCMS is the candidate for standard method for analysis of lard. Why? Because GCMS can find the specific marker, in this case is fatty acid, in the lard. So GCMS candidate for the standard method for analysis of lard. And also we can use LCMS, liquid chromatography mass spectrometry, for identifying the specific peptide marker in the porcine gelatin. Why? Because as you know, the gelatin is actually polypeptide, and then if we digest the gelatin, and then we can peptide, and from here we can find the specific peptide present in the porcine gelatin and also in bovine gelatin. So why GCMS can be used for analysis of lard? Because GCMS can find the specific marker, because GCMS can find the specific fatty acid marker to differentiate lard from others. And why LCMS, liquid chromatography mass spectrometry, is the candidate method for analysis of gelatin? Because LCMS can find the specific marker, in this case is peptide marker, to differentiate porcine gelatin and bovine gelatin. So this is the reasons why GCMS and also LCMS can be considered, can be taken into account as the confirmation method. So I want to show to all of you, for example, like that. Our colleague in Halal Product Research Institute in Malaysia, when I took the PhD program, our colleague developed a GCMS. In this case is two-dimensional GCMS, GC2GC, GC2GC, yeah, two-dimensional GC combined with time of flight mass spectrometer, and then our colleague find these three fatty acids. So actually, our colleague identify fatty acid present in the lard, in the chicken fat, mutton fat, and so on, and then a list of the fatty acid present in this fat and oil. And finally, our colleague find these three fatty acids: trans 9, 12, 15 octadecatrienoate, 11, 14, 17 eicosapentaenoic acid, and also 11, 14 eicosapentaenoic acid. So these three fatty acids are only observed in the lard. again that these 3 fatty acids only absorbed in the lard. So we can justify that these 3 fatty acids are marker for lard. So if you have the products, bakery products, for example, lipstick, lotion, cream, and these products are supposed to contain lard, then we can run GC top MS using GC top MS, and if we find this fatty acid in the analyzed product, so we can conclude that the product are positively to contain a lard. So this is the use of marker for analysis of non-halal component. So this is total ion chromatogram for these 3 fatty acid. These 3 fatty acid as the markers for lard. And then we move on to analysis of non-halal products using LC-MS-MS. Previously, we explored about the use of GC-MS, and now we focus on LC-MS-MS or LC-HRMS. LC, liquid chromatography, high resolution mass spectrometer. So this is, we have this instrument in our laboratory, LC-HRMS. So this method is very sensitive. The instrument is very sensitive, very specific for analysis of a non-halal component. We use this instrument. We use LCMS. We can use this instrument to analyze non-halal meat such as pork, wet boar, red meat, dog meat, and so on. We can also differentiate between halal gelatin and also porcine gelatin, and also we can differentiate between meat obtained from the slaughtering process according to Islamic principle, dhabiha, wa idza dhabhtum fa ahsinu al-dhibha. So dhabiha, and also non-dhabiha procedure. Why? Because we, as you know, that if the animal is slaughtered according to Islamic and not according to Islamic principle, so some metabolite are different. So we can search the metabolite for halal slaughtering and also metabolite for non-halal slaughtering. Again, this is through the through the marker approach. So as mentioned that we can use 3 approach. The first one is single specific or call marker, and then we can use fingerprinting process, and finally we also can use metabolomic approach. So LC-HRMS can be used to differentiate halal and non-halal components through metabolomic approach, because we can analyze all of the metabolite in non-halal component or also in halal component. So we can search the metabolite in halal meat, for example, beef, and also in non-halal meat, for example, pork. We can search the metabolite in the meat slaughter according to Islamic principle, and we can search the metabolite in the meat coming from non-halal slaughtering. So LC-HRMS is actually based on the metabolomic approach. So, for example, we have some publications, some of the paper like that. So this is LC-HRMS for analysis of dog meat. So this is my name, Abdurrahman. So we have some papers about the use of LC-HRMS for analysis of non-halal component. So actually this is through the analysis of metabolite, all of metabolite. So this approach is called as the metabolomic approach. So for analysis of non-halal meat using LC-HRMS, we can use this step. The first one is optimization of instrument, and then we can get total ion chromatogram. and then identification of metabolite or others, multivariate data analysis, identification of peak derivative through marker identification or classification profile. And this is new paper, our new paper, just published. About analysis of porcine gelatin in gelatin powder and gelatin containing food using non-targeted LC high resolution mass spectrometry based proteomics. So if we use proteomic, it means that we analyze all of the protein detected. If metabolomic, we analyze all of the metabolite presence, and lipidomic, all the lipid classes present in the our samples. So this is the total ion chromatogram. Yeah, when we inject our samples into the LC-HRMS instrument, so we can get the total ion chromatogram, and from total ion chromatogram we can get the peptide profile. This is the peptides. This is the peptide. So this is the bovine peptide for bovine. This is marker for a bovine, and this is porcine. Yeah, so this is bovine and this is porcine. So if you have the samples and then your sample contain this peptide, so we can conclude that your sample is bovine. But if your sample contain this peptide, so we can conclude that your sample is containing porcine gelatin. So this is we call as marker identification, but this is also called as metabolomic or proteomic, because all of the peptide analyzed, so we can state that this procedure is proteomic. Yeah. So LC-HRMS is also used for differentiation of gelatin coming from donkey, bovine, pig, glue, and also deerhound. So we can find the specific marker from this. Okay, this is just another example. So the final method to share is, so this is actually the general procedure for analysis of gelatin using LC-HRMS. The first one is protein extraction. As you know that gelatin, collagen is basically is protein. And then the second step is after we perform the protein extraction is protein digestion using the specific protease enzyme. Usually we use trypsin. As you know, that trypsin is one of the protease, and then we perform LC-HRMS analysis to identify peptide. Depend on our technique. If we use the technique based on the metabolomic, so we can identify the metabolite. If your technique is proteomic, you can detect all of the protein, and also lipidomic and so on. So it depends on our our approach. And then after we analyze using LC-HRMS, and then we can perform the data analysis to find the specific marker, or to find the specific metabolite. So this is called as the total ion chromatogram. So chromatogram with different M per Z, it means that the different peptide or different metabolite, because M per Z indicate the molecular weight of the peptide or the metabolite, and so on. So if TIC, total ion chromatogram, pure, the different MperG, so it means that there are different analyte, different metabolite, or different peptide present in your sample. So this is total ion chromatogram, and then from total ion chromatogram, again, we can find the peptide marker for porcine. So this is, and then when we analyze, we have the sample, this is samples, candies, and then we subject to analysis using LC-RMS, and then we can find this marker, SGDR, and so on. So these are the markers specific for porcine. So what is our conclusion? That because the analyzed samples contain this marker, so we can conclude that the analyzed samples contain porcine gelatin. So, and also in marshmallow, yeah. So when we run for analysis of marshmallow, and then we find some of the peptide marker, so it indicates that the analyzed sample are positive to contain a porcine gelatin. And also, as I mentioned before, that the LC-RMS can also use for the differentiation between Zabiha halal slaughtering process and non-Zabiha non-halal slaughtering process. So LC-RMS through metabolomic approach can identify some metabolite, and then if we run the chemometric analysis, and then we can find the pattern, or we can find the profile of, and this is the red color is non-Zabiha and the yellow color is Zabiha. So if you have unknown meat, for examples, and then you are doubtful about the slaughtering process, maybe you can run using LC-RMS, and then you can see in which location your sample fall. So if your sample is here, so it means non-Zabiha, and if your sample is located here, so it means that your sample is obtained from the halal slaughtering. So the last method to be shared is a real-time PCR. So real-time PCR, real-time polymerase chain reaction, is actually the gold method. It's actually the method of choice. Okay, the real-time PCR is the method of choice for analysis of non-halal component and DNA in this case. Yeah. Okay. Real-time PCR is the method of choice for analysis of DNA, and some steps for analysis include primer design, and then PCR analysis, and also method validation, and finally data analysis. So this is the main step for PCR procedure. The first one is denaturation, and then analyzing, and finally is amplification. So this is, I want to highlight one of the examples. This just published in 31 January 2026 about the use of a real-time PCR for porcine gelatin detection in the processed food and cosmetic products. So the primary use is this is the forward and reverse, and then we subject to PCR procedure, and finally we can get the amplification curve. So from here we can differentiate between cosmetic sample with and without porcine gelatin, and finally we can conclude about the presence of halal and non-halal gelatin. So this is the validation result of real-time PCR. Yeah, so the amplification efficiency is 100, around 100%, with coefficient of determination is higher than 0.99, and the detection limit or the sensitivity is 1.316, with a good repeatability with relative standard deviation value of 0.81. So it means that the PCR is valid. The PCR is accurate for not only for detection but also for quantification of DNA. In this case, is for porcine DNA in the cosmetic samples. So and then we run. And the validated method is for the use for analysis of porcine gelatin in marketed samples. The marketed sample analyzed are 5 cosmetic samples. In this case, is facial mask, and then 5 food samples, gelatin, marshmallow, and also no template control. From here, using the specific primer, we see that only the positive control is amplified, and all of the analyzed samples is didn't appear the amplification curve. So it means that all the samples are negative to contain porcine gelatin. So I want to show this is the last case in our presentation. So when we use real-time PCR to analyze, this is the case is capsule cells. So when we use the real-time PCR to analyze the sample, so there are no amplification curve. So it means that if there is no amplification curve, there are 2 possibilities. The first is that the sample are negative to contain porcine gelatin, or maybe we fail to extract the DNA. So the same extract are for the subject to PCR using the primer specific to bovine. As you know that the possibility if the gelatin are not coming from porcine, maybe it's coming from the bovine. So so to confirm whether the sample are coming from porcine or bovine gelatin, and then we run the same extract containing DNA, and then we use the primer which are specific to bovine, and finally all of the sample analyzed are amplified. All of the samples are amplified, indicate that all of the samples are positive to contain bovine. So the conclusion is that we didn't fail to extract the DNA, and the extracted sample are positive to contain bovine gelatin. So I think this is of my presentation, our sharing about the role of the standard laboratory for testing of non-halal component, and the time is given back to our moderator, our chairman, Pak Sapilur Rosat. Please welcome Pak Sapilur Rosat. Halo, Pak Sapilur Rosat. Hello, or maybe some of the participants want to comment.
Yeah, Bapak Abdul Rahman. I want to ask question.
Yeah.
Yeah, first, thank you so much for the interesting material. And when we discuss about the Zabiha and Zabiha, that is really interesting for me because I've never learned about that before. And this is a really nice opportunity that I learned about that here today. My question is, what components, because you saw the result of the analysis, right? But it's not really clear for me what components that make them different, actually, and how is the presence of those components is affected by the slaughtering method, because I didn't expect that it can give such outcome because they are the same raw materials, and I suppose they have the same DNA, the same things. But how, like slaughtering process itself, could differentiate the result? Yeah, I'm really curious about that. Can you elaborate more? Thank you.
Okay, thank Dr. Tita. Okay, from you can read this paper untargeted. I will give to the participant my presentation material, and then you can check this article if you can. This article is open access. This article can be free downloaded, and from your questions I can answer that these they are I think of 25 metabolites can be used. This is maybe not clear, but from this is a list of compound with having blah 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 for differentiate between Zabica and non-Zabica. So you can see discriminating metabolite for differentiation between Zabica and non-Zabica from the perspective of LC-HRMS method. Are you okay?
Yeah, but the thing is, I know there are some difference in metabolites, but how, like slaughtering process, can affect the presence of these components or of these metabolites? Like, is it because
I think this is
the blood or
I think this is good. I think this is a good question. So, but because I am analytical chemist, I am analytical chemist, so we just said that the some metabolite can be used for differentiate. But from the biochemical perspective, so maybe if the animals is slaughtered according to Islamic principle, Zabiha, maybe the condition is like pleasure, my example. So and if the animal is slaughtered not according to Islamic principle, maybe under stressful, so maybe some metabolites is expressed during the pleasure and also during the stressful. So, but this explanation, I think, can be better explained by the biochemical process, biochemical biochemistry process. But this is not my expertise. But I just saw that we can identify, we can detect, we can analyze some of the discriminating metabolite between Zabica and non-Zabica. So I am so sorry about this.
Oh yeah, and also maybe one more question. Like, do you think like the presence of metabolites itself, the difference of metabolites presence in both Zabiha and Zabiha meat, make them like healthier compared to one another? I mean, like Zabiha one is healthier compared to non-Zabiha, and what metabolites that support that?
Okay, I think good question. So in my opinion, from the analytical chemist perspective, so if the samples is on the different different condition, maybe the metabolite are different. So how to identify the metabolite? So in terms of maybe the chemical name, the chemical structure, using LC-HRMS, using the instrument, and then we can get an assisted by specific software, so we can get the chemical structure of the metabolite. Minimum we can information about the chemical formula like that, doctor. So as you know, the LC high resolution mass spectrometry, we can have the number four number after in or five four numbers, so the identification is very accurate. Okay, like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, now the questions.
Yes, Doctor, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, may I allow to have a question, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just because we learned about different test methods, so I just want to confirm that in Indonesia, for products containing gelatin, the preferred test method is the LC-HRMS.
Okay, good question. In Indonesia, the current method on the standard method for analysis of fluorescent gelatin is based on PCR, because the instrument of based on a PCR is more common than LC-HRMS. Not all of the laboratories have the LC-HRMS, even a big university. So the popular on the standard method for testing the fluorescent gelatin is through DNA-based method. In this case, we use PCR. And also in the draft of Indonesia, I think in Indonesian standard for analysis of peak derivative here is based on the PCR. Are you okay?
PCR.
Okay.
Okay, all good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum, brother Abdul Rahman.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yes, brother, I have, mashallah, you explained everything, especially the food microbiology in a very well detailed, mashallah. Can you please forward to me the qPCR paper, the one you published, please? Because yes, I work a lot with the qPCR, a lot, and yeah. And the other question.
This is PCR.
Yes, please. Yes, yeah, this one. Jazakallah khair. And the other question, you mentioned that some of your method can identify the gelatin halal and non-halal gelatin. What happens if the both sources are coming from the halal source? I mean that how can you will be identify like those samples if it is not from pig, if it is coming from both like the halal source? So I was just a little bit curious, I was just wondering, how do you like identify the gelatin, halal gelatin and non-halal gelatin?
Okay, so I think you have also familiar with qPCR. So for analysis of the halal gelatin and also non-halal gelatin is basically based on the analysis of percent DNA, as one of the challenging is here is how to extract or how to find the DNA in our samples, DNA from the gelatin. So if your question is to analyze both halal gelatins, for example, from other source, so I think we can use the specific primer for the species. So the first, are you okay? So the first step for analysis of gelatin using PCR is to design or to use the specific primer.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Mashallah. Okay. Jazakallah khair, brother. Thank you so much.
Shukran jazilan. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay, maybe one more questions because the time limit. Okay, if there is no other question, okay.
Brother, one question. When you are using like the standard PCR, are you using like specific primer, or you do like sequences analysis?
Oh, good question. Actually, we it depends on the our purpose. So because we use a real-time PCR, so actually we didn't need the sequencing because we use the specific primer for this, so we can see in real time about the amplification. But we also perform the sequencing with if we want to know the amplicon or the product of the amplification. But this is actually for research, not for the standard testing. for standard testing, we just use the specific primer. Okay.
A specific primer. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, Amin. Okay, maybe I think I am very happy because all of you are very attractive, very interactive, and very fruitful discussion, and I hope all of you are familiar with halal certification, especially halal certification in Indonesia. And I hope all of you are successful as the auditors, and then we can spread the Islamic views, and we can implement the Quran verse in Al-Baqarah, ya ayyuhan nasu kulu ma fil ardi halalan thayyiba. And finally, I want to say sorry if some of my explanation cannot be well understood by all of our colleagues from Lithuania. So again, I hope all of you are success in your career and your role as the halal auditor in your country. And I think this is my closing statement, and the time is given back by our moderator, Pak Sabilur Rosad. Please welcome, Pak.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Abdurrahman. Thank you for your time and for your knowledge. So we need to get your material, Prof. Abdurrahman.
Okay,
So please.
I will send to Mas Arifin after
Yes,
this,
yes.
and then maybe Pak Arifin will distribute to the all participant.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much,
Okay.
Prof. And then thank you for all of participant and success. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.